All right, so let's do a Punnett squared to see what are the probabilities that if you have a mutation in the X chromosome, how is that mutation going to affect males or females? Is it going to affect both of them equally? Is one of them going to be more affected than the other? Let's find out. So in this case, what I have is a couple. So in the case of the dad, he is phenotypically normal, which means that his X chromosome, the only X chromosome that he has, is normal. There's no mutations. In the case of the mom, I'm actually making her so that she actually has a mutation on one of her X chromosomes. So on the top, we put the genotype of the dad. So in this case, we put an X and a Y because he's a male. And in the case of the mom, because she's a female, I want to put an X and an X. But because there is a mutation on one of the X chromosomes that she has, I'm going to make one of the X chromosomes to be red. So essentially what we do is we multiplied the genotypes of the mom with the genotypes of the dad. So we multiplied the X of the mom with the X of the dad, and then the X of the mom with the wife of the dad, and then we move towards the bottom. So we multiply the X of the mom with the X of dad, and finally the X of the mom with the Y of the dad. So let's find out if this specific condition that is carried in the X chromosome and is recessive, let's see if it affects males or females. All right, so after we do the Punnett square, so this is what we get. So let's see if this is a disease that is caused by a gene that is found on the X chromosome. Does it affect males or does it affect females? So based on this Punnett square, one of the things that we can see is that none of the females is affected. The reason for that is because if you guys remember, you ladies have 2 copies of the X chromosome. And even though the lady on the bottom, one of her X chromosomes is mutated, however, because she has a second one as a backup, she's not going to be affected with this specific disease. In the case of the gentleman, we see that one of them is going to be affected. So the reason for that is because we only have one X chromosome. And if that specific X chromosome is affected, then we're going to have that disease. So based on this Punnett square, what we can say is that 1 out of the 4 offspring is going to have this disease, or 1 out of the 2 males is affected by this specific disease. So as you can see, having an extra X chromosome provides some sort of protection for you ladies. Okay, so does that mean that the ladies can never be affected by a disease that is found on the X chromosome? Well, let's find out. So in this case, what I have is a couple. So in this case, the dad carries a mutation on his only X chromosome that he has. And in the case of the mom, she carries a mutation on one of her 2 X chromosomes. So let's do this Punnett square. Again, so basically what we do is we multiply the genotypes of the mom and the genotypes of the dad. So I'm putting the genotypes of the dad on the top and the genotypes of the mom on one side. So what we do is we multiply the X of the mom with the X of the dad, the X of the mom with the Y of the dad, and then we move towards the bottom. So we multiply the X of the mom with the X of the dad, and finally the X of the mom with the Y of the dad. So let's find out if any of the ladies is affected with this mutation. Alright, so after we do the Punnett square, so this is a mutation that is found on the X chromosome and is inherited in a recessive fashion. So based on the Punnett square, what we can see is that one of the females is going to be affected with this condition, and also one of the males is going to be affected with this condition as well. But if you guys notice, in order for a female to be affected with this condition, both the mom and the dad must have a mutation on the X chromosome. So there is a way, right, in which a female is going to be affected with a mutation that is found on the X chromosome, but both mom and dad must carry this mutation in order for a female to be affected. So the Y chromosome that is found in the body of us gentlemen, it was given to us by our dad. Here is some important information about the Y chromosome. If you guys remember, crossing over happens between homologous chromosomes. So homologous chromosomes are identical when it comes to the shape, are identical when it comes to the size, and they have the same genes. So that means that crossing over does not happen between the X chromosome that we have and the Y chromosome that we have in the case of gentlemen. So that means that the Y chromosome that is found in your body looks more or less exactly as the Y chromosome that is found on your dad, that is found in your grandpa, and so on and so forth. There's going to be some differences because of mutations, but they can actually use the Y chromosome to trace the paternal side of the family. What about the maternal side of the family? What can we use to trace the maternal side of the family? Well, we actually can use the mitochondria. So the mitochondria that is found in your body, it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, it was given to you by your mom. So you can actually use the mitochondria to actually trace the maternal side of the family. So far, we have been talking about dominant versus recessive, but in real life, things are more complicated than this. There are some cases in which the offspring exhibits a phenotype that is an intermediate between dominant and recessive. So we call this incomplete dominance. So let me give you an example. So in this case, red is dominant to white. So we're going to cross a homozygous dominant flower with a homozygous recessive flower. So after we do the Punnett square, we have 4 offsprings that are heterozygous. And if we look at the offsprings, we see that they're all are pink, which is an intermediate between red and white. So what is happening here? Why is it that even though the offsprings have the dominant allele, why is it that they're not all red? Well, the reason for this is because they're actually producing half the amount of the protein that gives them the red color. And this is why they are pink. So when we're thinking about incomplete dominance, just think about the offsprings are producing half the amount of the protein.